Hey guys, tonight we begin with a slow drifting journey into a world where nothing dramatic happens, and that is exactly the charm. So if you are settling into bed or sinking into a quiet evening, this is your moment to breathe, deeply let your shoulders loosen and glide with me into Venice in the year 1666. There is no plague, no great fire, no disaster worthy of bold headlines. Just a man named Matteo living a life so consistent, so unchanging that it feels like a soft blanket across time. We walk beside him not to witness excitement, but to fall into the rhythm of repetition, because sometimes peace is simply doing the same thing again and again until the act itself becomes a prayer. Picture dawn in Venice, pale light stretched across still water. Boats sleep at their moorings, and no one is rushing anywhere. Matteo wakes at 5, just as he did yesterday, and the day before, and all the hundreds of days before that. His room is small, and his bed creaks gently under the same weight it has known for decades. He rises slowly, as if each motion is part of a choreography rehearsed for a lifetime. He sits on the edge of the bed, rests his feet on the cool floor, and breathes. Water waits outside, silent and patient. Matteo stretches his back, his hands rough with paste dust and old paint. He does not hurry, because there is nothing to hurry for. The city is quiet. The world is soft. The day will unfold in familiar threads, and he welcomes it like an old friend. He lights a small lamp and walks to his workshop, where scraps of wetted paper lie stacked from the evening before. Papier-mâché strips soak lazily in a shallow basin, and he checks them one by one to be certain they hold just the right softness. Not too dry, not too weak. The same balance every day. He dips fingertips into the water, lifts the strip, lets it drip slowly, and nods with faint approval. This is good. This is enough. Matteo sets to work forming the first mask of the morning. A plain white bodice shape with simple lines and no grand ambition. To others it might seem dull or repetitive, but to him it is a meditation. Each layer smoothed across the wooden mold with patient hands. He lays one strip, then another, building the familiar curve of cheek, nose, brow. The silence is unbroken, except for the sound of water and the gentle press of material. Time moves like a gondola on still canals, slow, steady, and without urgency. Matteo hums softly 3 notes, rising then falling, then rising again. He never adds a fourth, a habit rooted so deep it is like breathing. As the first mask begins to take shape, dawn grows stronger. Light filters through dusty shutters, making small gold pools on the floor. Matteo continues soaking, cutting, shaping over and over. By mid-morning, he has finished several masks, identical in form, identical in future purpose. Venetians love their masks most during carnival, yet Matteo knows that buyers come throughout the year. Nobles, foreign traders, curious travelers. But for him it matters little. A mask is a mask, and everyone receives his same quiet devotion. No signature flourishes, no grand strokes of ego. Just the craft done well and repeated without complaint. From his window, he hears gondoliers greeting the day. Their voices low and friendly, carrying across water like slow-moving music. He does not pause to watch them. He already knows the sight. Boats sliding by like black feathers. Water lapping gently against houses. The rhythm eternal, unbroken. Around noon, Matteo steps away from his bench. He washes his hands, slowly enjoying the coolness of the basin. Then he eats one bowl of rice and beans that has no seasoning beyond simple salt. It is the same meal he had yesterday and will have tomorrow. Sitting alone, he chews slowly, looking at nothing in particular. There is comfort in the ordinary. Nothing remarkable. Nothing surprising. Just nourishment and the soft creak of wood beneath him. Lunch ends. Matteo wipes the inside of the bowl with bread and finishes the last bite. Then he lies on his wooden bench, a narrow piece of furniture, worn smooth by years of afternoon rest. He folds his hands over his stomach, closes his eyes, and allows the gentle sounds of Venice to wash over him. Water touches, stone boats knock lazily against their posts, doves call in distant squares. He does not sleep quickly or deeply. Instead, he drifts in and out of half-dreams where masks float like pale moons and his own routine repeats, softly as waves against the shore. After his nap, Matteo returns to the masks, now drying in the open window, where sunlight kisses the surface, turning damp paste into something solid. He inspects each one, looking for imperfections, though he rarely finds any. 30 years of practice have made his touch steady and certain. Yet he studies them with quiet respect, knowing that even a life of repetition deserves attention. He begins painting. First coat white smooth like ivory, softened by careful strokes. The paint glides across form like memory across years. As the masks dry, he paints again, deepening the tone until each piece reaches the perfect matte finish he has known since youth. 27 masks today, just like yesterday. There will be 27 tomorrow too. Though no one demands this exact number, he finds balance in it, like heartbeat, like tide, like breath. He neither rushes nor lingers beyond need. The work flows at one pace, always one pace. Evening descends gently. Shadows lengthen over canals and the city settles into warm hush. Matteo places the final mask on the drying rack and steps outside to watch light fade across water. A gondola glides by slow as memory. The oarsman sings softly, no urgency, no celebration, just song as natural as the tide. Matteo leans against his doorway, breathing in the scent of wet stone, old wood, faint paint. Life continues unchanged. Tomorrow will mirror today. In that thought, he finds contentment rather than boredom. His purpose is not excitement but constancy. The day ends. Matteo returns inside, lights his lamp, and sits beside the finished masks. They stare blank and calm, like dozens of identical moons waiting for faces to wear them. He hums those same 3 notes as he cleans his tools, folds cloths, and prepares paper for morning. Nothing new, nothing unexpected, just peace and repetition. He blows out the lamp. The room fades in the velvet dark silence. Water moves outside slow as thought. Night settles like soft wool across Venice, and in the small home of Matteo, the scent of drying paint lingers almost like memory. He sleeps without stirring beneath a thin blanket, while gondolas drift by as slow as whispered thought. The moon hangs above the canal, pale and indifferent, watching a life that changes less than tides. Morning will arrive with no news story, no grand event, no scandal. Only the same gentle rhythm that guides Matteo from one day to the next, like a pulse, steady and quiet. At 5, Matteo wakes again. Not because of alarm or duty, but because his body has learned time like rosary beads worn smooth through endless touch. He rises with stiff joints and soft breath. The floor is cool on bare feet. He lights a lamp with practiced ease. Already paper waits in a basin, soaking through the long hours of night. Each strip floats like a little ghost surrendering to water. Matteo observes them patiently. He lifts one, tests its softness, then nods once. Yes, just right, just as yesterday. He moves through routine without thought. Because after 30 years of the same motions, routine becomes more than habit. It becomes identity. He shapes the first bottom mask for the day, hands steady as old wood. The room fills with the quiet rustle of wet paper pressed and smoothed into form. Layer after layer. Cheek then brow then nose. No rush, no frustration, only patience. He hums those same 3 notes that set the tone for another day, identical in pattern and pace. Outside, gondoliers trade lazy greetings across still water. Their voices drift through open shutters like soft wind. Matteo does not look up. He knows who passes even without seeing. The baker's boat is first with warm loaves stacked like pale suns. Then the fishmonger with silver scales gleaming faintly in early light. Then an old man who sells fruit that tastes the same every season. Venice in 1666 is not a place of urgency. It breathes like Matteo, slow and even and eternal. By mid-morning, Matteo has built 6 new masks. Their shapes mirror each other like reflections in calm water. He lines them in a neat row on the table and studies them for irregularities he rarely finds. Years ago, he might have felt pride or ambition. But now he simply feels stillness. The masks exist. He exists with them. No more is needed. Lunch arrives with no ceremony. Rice and beans again, no surprise, no garnish. He sits by the window bowl in hands and watches gondolas slide by one. A woman with a red shawl passes daily at this hour. Matteo does not know her name. She does not know his. Yet their encounters are constant as tides. She glances toward his window, never long enough to form story, only enough to confirm existence. He chews slowly and the day continues unbroken. After eating, Matteo lies on his wooden bench and rests. The same nap as yesterday and tomorrow. Light flickers patterns across the wall like ripples of canal water. His eyes close, half aware, half dreaming. In dreams he is not young or old, only present. He is surrounded by masks, blank, serene, staring. They wait for festival faces, voices, laughter, none of which he hears. He rests in that stillness until waking feels like returning from shallow water to surface air. The afternoon repeats with gentle inevitability. Matteo paints each mask in thin layers of white. Stroke after stroke. The brush moves like boat oars, slow and steady. Sun warms the workshop and dries fresh coats evenly. He lifts one mask, holds it to the light, and checks surface by sight alone. Perfect again. He sets it onto the drying rack beside its brothers. Soon there will be 27 once more. That number anchors him. Without it, his world might drift loose like a boat with no rope. Evening draws shadows long across stone. Matteo steps outside to breathe the air that tastes faintly of salt and old wood. He watches reflection of sky ripple softly. Nothing changes and nothing needs to. Tomorrow will bring the same paper, the same basin, the same paint. Some would call this monotony, but Matteo calls it life. A quiet life is still a life. And sometimes it feels like eternity in a single steady breath. A gondolier sings again, voice low like silk sliding through dark. Matteo listens without reacting. He has heard this song since youth. 3 notes up, 1 note down. Much like his own tune, familiarity folds into him like fabric. Mask maker and city share tempo like heart and blood. He returns inside, hangs his apron, and smooths paper for next day. He blows out lamp. Darkness settles gentle and complete. 5 arrives again. Matteo wakes. No surprise. No thought. Paper waits like obedient student. He shapes mask after mask until hands ache in the same places they always ache. Afternoon breaks softly. Rice and beans. Gondolas. The woman in red. Nap. Breezes touching his cheek like polite visitor. Evening again. Paint again. Drying racks like white moons in twilight. Peaceful, endless loop. One day a nobleman stops at his doorway, but Matteo hardly notices difference. The man asks about the masks. Matteo nods. Yes, they are for sale like any day. The nobleman buys 3, says he is preparing for carnival, though carnival is weeks away. Matteo wraps them in oilcloth. The nobleman praises craft, but Matteo shrugs. Craft is not achievement, it is rhythm. The nobleman leaves and nothing changes. Matteo returns to work. The next week passes in identical hours. 7 days or 70 or 700 could move through his hands like strands of the same paper. Matteo continues building, painting, drying. His world is small but not empty. It is filled by repetition like a poem that never ends. The canal never rushes. Venice never shouts. Matteo never questions. Perhaps this is happiness. Or perhaps happiness is unnecessary when routine is enough. Night comes. He sleeps. Morning again, and Matteo rises before the sun without thinking. He ties the same apron he has tied for half a lifetime. The basin of paper strips waits exactly as it did yesterday, as though time itself paused until his hands were ready to move again. He dips each strip into the water and lays them out one by one across the table, humming those 3 tired notes that seem older than he is. This day will mirror the last in every detail, but somehow the familiarity feels like a soft cushion beneath all thought. The narrow workshop fills with pale light as dawn stretches across rooftops and stone. Matteo smooths stamped paper over the wooden mold, pressing gently along the cheeks of the mask. He knows every curve by touch more than sight. Even with eyes closed, his fingers could create the same face he has formed thousands of times. A face that will never change or age. A face as blank as the days themselves. No drama, no deviation, no excitement. His breath remains slow and steady, the way a gondola glides across perfect water without wind. Outside, Venice wakens again with the same soft gestures. A merchant calls across the canal selling figs and olives that taste no different from last season. A baker opens shutters, releasing warm air scented with rising dough. Gondolas shift lazily against their moorings, nudged only by gentle ripples. Matteo listens without listening because he already knows the rhythm. It is the same music that has accompanied him since youth, calm and predictable like footsteps through memory. By mid-morning he has finished the first 6 masks of the day, lined in precise order just as he prefers. Each one smooth and pale, not a single curve too sharp or too soft. Matteo studies them while humming his 3 notes slowly, as though confirming the world still holds shape and order. He sets them on the drying rack and returns to the basin to begin again. No thought of changing pace or breaking routine touches his mind. The day stretches before him like a canal with no turning. At noon he pauses for rice and beans, the only meal he knows well enough to prepare without effort. He sits by the window gazing at ripples across water, and chews each bite at the same unhurried tempo. The woman with the red shawl appears again, stepping into a gondola and gliding out of view. Matteo has seen her 100 times and will see her again tomorrow at the same hour. He does not speak to her. There is no need. Presence alone is enough. After lunch, he lies on the bench with hands folded, quiet as marble. The map comes slowly like fog drifting low over lagoon water. He drifts without dreaming now, or with dreams so faint they leave no trace when his eyes open again. In that half-waking state, the world feels blurred like paint mixed with too much thin water. But when he rises, the workshop is still there, and the masks wait like silent witnesses to time. He paints each one with thin strokes, building color layer by layer, until they gleam soft and white like new snow under winter moon. His brush moves at a pace no quicker or slower than needed. The afternoon light warms the room like breath. Matteo paints until the last of 27 sits, drying in even rows. He steps back, nodding gently to himself, not out of pride but out of recognition. Another day complete. Another cycle unbroken. Evening arrives with predictable subtlety. No sudden wind, no loud voices. Just longer shadows and the distant sound of gondoliers returning home. Matteo stands at the canal doorway, breathing twilight. The city glows faintly gold like an old oil painting. He watches a gondola pass carrying lantern light across water. Its reflection shimmers softly, but the motion is slow, steady, familiar. Nothing urges him to speak or move. Stillness holds him like water holds stone. The next morning begins exactly the same. He wakes before the first gondolier. The lamp flame flickers against cracked walls. Paper strips float in their basin like petals. Matteo works without pause, shaping mask after mask. Noon arrives, rice and beans. Nap. Afternoon, paint drying. Evening, quiet. Another series of hours laid like identical stones across an unending path. Days multiply like paper layers, building into something solid yet weightless. Matteo ages very slowly, or perhaps he does not age at all in the mind of his routine. His hair grays, but his hands move with the same practiced calm. He counts nothing except 27 masks, each day always 27. The world outside shifts gently, but not enough to be noticed. Even carnival season approaches like it always does, with faint music, faint laughter, faint color drifting through streets like dusty ribbons on the breeze. During carnival, the city fills with masks of laughter and intrigue. Matteo sells his white bautas to merchants who resell them to nobles and travelers. He watches masked figures pass his window like ghostly twins, each face born from his hands, yet carrying lives he will never know. Some brushed with gold leaf, others painted with rouge, others lined with black velvet. But Matteo does not decorate his own. His masks remain blank like the days that shaped them. Pure and simple and without narrative. He sees a masked couple once pausing near his door. The woman's mask is one he remembers painting last month. The man kisses her gloved hand, and she laughs soft behind the porcelain face. Matteo watches only for a moment, then returns to his bench to soak new paper. Love does not interrupt routine. Laughter does not change the pace of his work. Life remains a quiet canal moving endlessly forward. After festival season ends, Venice returns to muted tones. Canals slow. Voices soften. Matteo continues. Weeks pass. Then months. But time does not matter when every day is a mirror. The only difference is the number of finished masks, stacked in storage, wrapped in cloth like white moons hiding from sun. He sells enough to live. He asks for nothing more. Sometimes he hears distant music from a tavern at night. A violin slow and longing, but even that does not pull him from pattern. He sleeps through melody the way he sleeps through years. Dreams fade like paint water in a cloth bucket. One winter morning, frost edges the window pane, delicate as lace. Matteo notices but does not dwell. Cold changes nothing. He warms paste by the fire and continues shaping masks while humming his same 3 notes, though breath shows in pale clouds. Routine holds him steady like rope against drifting tide. Venice continues to breathe around him, soft and unhurried. Bridges arch like gentle ribs across water. Pigeons land near windows. Boats scrape lightly against stone. All familiar, all unchanged. The world moves, but Matteo remains a still point in endless rhythm. He lives this record without variation and finds comfort in every identical day. Perhaps eternity feels like this, a long walk where each step echoes the last. Perhaps some lives are meant not as stories but as steady songs that never change key. The lamp dims again. Matteo closes his workshop for the night. Tomorrow is already waiting like paper and water. Morning rises again like a pale coin above the canal, and Matteo wakes without surprise. No thought precedes movement. His feet find floor, his hands find lamp, his breath falls into the same slow rhythm that has guided every dawn since memory began. The house feels unchanged, the workshop unchanged, the world unchanged. Papier-mâché strips rest in the basin, soft through night, waiting for him like loyal servants who know their roles without needing instruction. He hums the familiar three-note tune and begins to work, shaping the first mask of the day with movements so practiced they seem almost separate from consciousness. The wooden mold is smooth beneath his fingers. The damp paper clings, then settles, then accepts form. Matteo presses gently, smoothing edges, building structure. Each bottom mask grows like a pale white moon from his palm. The room is still except for water dripping and faint gull calls outside. Light moves slow across plaster walls, and time stretches with it. The mask dries a little by little, exactly as it did yesterday and the day before and all the years before that. Matteo layers another strip, then another, until shape is complete enough to join its silent brothers on the rack. Outside boats float without haste. Oars dip into water like slow metronome ticks. Vendors call as though each word is carried through honey. Matteo does not look up. He knows their voices by sound alone. He could name each one by tone even if he never speaks to them, though he speaks rarely at all now. The days require no language beyond the whisper of paper and the soft murmur of water against stone. A man may go years without speaking and feel no lack when routine itself is conversation. By mid-morning he has formed 12 masks. They lie in neat rows like white petals. Matteo steps away, stretches back, shoulders, spine. Pain arrives where it always arrives, dull and familiar as repetition. He accepts it as one accepts weather, not as curse, only as part of existence. He returns for another strip, soaking, smoothing, forming. The workshop hums with quiet purpose that never changes and never needs to. At noon, Matteo stops. Rice and beans again, one bowl, always one bowl. He eats slowly, gazing through open shutters at the canal where sunlight turns water gold. A gondola glides past nose first, like patient swan. The woman in red shawl walks along stone path, turning neither left nor right. Matteo watches only for a moment before lowering gaze to bowl. Food steady and plain fills his body enough to continue ancient cycle. Hunger is never fierce because life is never rushed. Even appetite seems to follow rhythm like tide. After lunch, he rests on wooden bench, narrow, uncomfortable, yet perfectly familiar. His body knows its shape like hands know mask shape. Eyes closed, but mind remains afloat between waking and dream. Sound of gondoliers blends with sigh of river breeze. Matteo drifts without destination. He dreams sometimes that he wanders Venice, but sees only masks hanging from sky like moons. They glow white and silent and unchanging. When he opens eyes, bench still beneath him and workshop still waiting, as though dream never mattered at all. Afternoon painting begins with same slow stroke. Brush glides across surface, thin as whisper. First coat, then second, then third. The white deepens to perfect matte, smooth like polished bone. Matteo paints 27 masks, always 27, though no one demands the count. It is number of balance, number of comfort. He finishes as evening descends, shadows long and soft. He places final mask on rack, steps back, and observes rows like quiet choir. None speak yet, they fill space with presence. Evening falls across Venice without drama. Lamps reflect in water like stars dropped too low. Matteo stands doorway watching light ripple. Gondola sings again, same melody as always. A warm wind carries scent of salt wood and earth. Nothing new, nothing strange. The day folds into night like paper layers pressed into shape. Matteo cleans tools with slow, careful movements. Cloth wipes basin, removes traces of paste. He sets everything exactly where it belongs. Then lamp darkens and sleep returns as steady as tide. And so next dawn arrives. Again, Matteo rises at 5. Again, basin awaits. Again, he hums and works. Days slip like water through fingers, yet pool into something heavy and unbroken. Time stretches long and pale like corridor with no door. Matteo never questions. He feels no need to ask why. Life does not require meaning when ritual sustains breath. Years pass softly. Matteo's hair whitens like the masks he creates. His back bends slightly more each winter. But hands remain sure and steady. The city changes in small ways that hardly register. New gondoliers replace old ones. Voices shift, yet rhythm holds. The woman in red shawl appears less often, then sometimes disappears for weeks. Matteo notes absence only faintly, like ripple fading behind boat. When she returns, nothing feels altered. She is still red bright as memory. Matteo still watches only a moment, then returns to bowl or brush or mold. One afternoon, a boy wanders into workshop, eyes wide with curiosity. Matteo looks up as though seeing ghosts of his own youth. The boy asks if mask making is difficult. Matteo shrugs, slow and thoughtful. Not difficult, he says, only endless. The boy laughs light and brief, then asks if Matteo knows boredom. Matteo pauses as though trying to recall meaning of word. Boredom does not exist here, only routine. The boy nods, confused but polite, then leaves. Matteo returns to his strips without another thought. His world remains whole. Carnival comes and goes again. Nobles buy masks, paint them, gild them, wear them for nights filled with music, flirtation, mystery. Matteo hears distant celebration but does not join. He sells white faces of anonymity to those who crave new identity, though he himself remains always Matteo, always alone, always steady. He watches masked revelers from window one evening. Their laughter echoes across canal like bells muffled in cloth. But sound does not stir longing. Instead, it feels like breeze passing cloth hung to dry. Not disruption, only movement. After carnival, silence returns more profound than before. Streets empty. Water rests. Matteo returns to endless work without pause. The stack of new masks grows high. He stores them carefully tied in bundles. He counts nothing but 27 a day. Routine stretches into decades like rope. One winter night, Matteo sits by canal watching fog roll low across water. Lamps glow like distant suns blurred by mist. He looks at reflection of his own face, older, lined, pale like mask. For a moment he wonders what difference lies between plaster face and his own. Both share stillness, both reveal nothing. Thoughts drift slow like oars across water. Then he rises and returns inside to prepare next morning's strips. No weight remains from question. Routine softens all edges. Life continues in this gentle loop where every choice is already chosen. Where every day returns like tide and nothing breaks surface. Matteo breathes, masks dry, canals whisper, and time folds without sound. So now we drift again through another day that does not feel like a new day at all, but rather a soft reflection of all past mornings blended into one peaceful thread. Matteo wakes because something inside him always wakes him before the sun. Not excitement and not duty, but simply the same steady inner pull that has guided him since youth. His legs swing slowly from the straw mattress and his feet find the cold floorboards without hurry because there is nothing urgent in his world and nothing different waiting on the other side of the door. He stands for a long moment, letting his breath fill the still room, and then he begins the morning with one quiet step and then another. He moves to the basin filled last night with clear water drawn from the canal, and he splashes it onto his face. No shock. No thrill. Just the same coolness he has known all his life. He hums a long-drawn note that is neither happy nor sad, but simply present like the water, the wood, the air. Then he lights the small oil lamp because dawn is slow today and the workshop is dim. With that faint light, he sees the table and the strips of paper and the clay forms, and nothing in the room has shifted even by a finger width since yesterday. He feels no desire to change it. He lowers the first strip into the bowl where yesterday paper softens into pliant tenderness. Each piece moves through his hands like a memory. He lifts the wet strip and drapes it across the mold. Then another. Then another. Time ceases to mean anything. His hands know every movement by muscle and bone. They do not think. They do not plan. They simply repeat a life already lived hundreds of times. Birds call outside across the canal, though Matteo hears them as only a faint blur behind the rustle of drying paper. He listens without listening, because every bird call today has the same shape as the bird calls of last year. Hours pass like water wandering downhill. The light grows stronger. He paints another mask white, then another. He counts them, though the number does not matter. 27 for the day, just like always. They line the table like silent, identical faces. None more special than the next. None with a story or a soul. And yet maybe each has something of him embedded within its quiet features. The steady heartbeat of a man who seeks nothing beyond routine. At noon he pauses. He eats his rice and beans. The bowl is small and the portion is never more nor less. He sits on the bench by the window where the same pattern of cast light falls across his lap every single day. If the world shifted even a fraction, perhaps Matteo would not know what to do with his time. But since it never does, he rests peacefully, chews, swallows, hums. The three-note melody that he has never changed and never expanded. Then the heat of afternoon begins to push gently through the shutters. Matteo leans back to sleep. His nap is light and soft and barely deeper than waking. Dreams never come in images. Only long blank stretches of gray. Sometimes he wakes uncertain whether he slept at all. He looks again at the masks drying in a row. They are dry enough for evening work, so he begins sanding them. One by one, slowly, carefully. The powder falls from each edge like snowfall in miniature. It gathers in tiny piles that he will sweep tonight just as he always does. Outside the canal, sounds never stop. Oars push. Water laps. Voices float but at a distance. He could stand and look out. He could speak to a gondolier. He could spend the day walking the narrow streets or visiting the market, but he does not. Matteo has never been anchored by the city, only by the craft that fills each hour with predictable rhythm. His world is small and he likes it so. Evening arrives without announcement. He does not mark the time with thought. His hands simply slow. The sanded masks wait to receive the final coat of paint tomorrow morning, so he cuts the lamp wick shorter and gathers the loose strips for soaking overnight. Every motion echoes the entire year before this moment. It will echo the year ahead as well. He eats a heel of bread, drinks room temperature water. Nothing changes. Nothing surprises. The day folds inwards just as it unfolded. Matteo returns to bed. He lies flat, hands on his stomach, eyes closed. He hears the distant slow song of a gondolier praise the night sky. A gentle human shape gliding across the black rippling water. Matteo listens. The song fades. There will be another song tomorrow. Likely the same tune with the same tired voice. And Matteo will hear it while shaping another face that looks exactly like the one before it. The world narrows. The workshop becomes a single heartbeat of repetition. And Matteo falls asleep as gently as he woke. The masks rest on their shelf with silent white gazes. They do not change. Neither does their maker. Another day waits just beyond dawn. And dawn is never late. Morning arrives again, though it feels less like a new day and more like a long, slow continuation of everything that has already happened. Matteo opens his eyes before the bell of any church has imagined ringing. There is no reason behind this waking and no story hidden under it. His body simply follows the rhythm it has known for decades. He rises, breathes, sits for a moment on the edge of the straw mattress, letting silence settle across the room. Outside, a faint silver glow leaks into the shutters. It is neither bright nor dim. It is simply enough to find his way to the workshop table without thought. He lights his lamp with one practiced gesture. Oil draws into wick. Flame steadies into its usual small, unwavering glow. He stands before the row of unfinished bottom masks. They watch him without watching, because they are only shapes made by his hands, and those hands have no need for decision or inspiration. They are guided by routine, which is stronger than desire or ambition. Matteo dips the first strip of paper into the basin, where last night's soak has softened every edge. The strip bends willingly. He smooths it across the curved plaster mold. Then another. Then another. Nothing challenges him. Nothing resists. The craft feels like breathing. Hours slide past without event. The lamp grows weaker as daylight strengthens. Matteo adjusts nothing. His movements remain slow and steady. When sunlight finally replaces flame, he does not mark the moment. He only shifts slightly so that shadows fall away from his workspace. The masks soon form a fresh second row, perfectly identical to the first. White, silent, waiting for paint. 27 again. Always 27, because 27 fills the day to its fullest without spilling over into night. He pauses for a sip of water. He hums the same 3 notes that accompany every morning, as though they were stitched into his bones. Outside, a gondola glides by. Oars dip into water with that soft, hypnotic rhythm Venice has carried for centuries. Nothing interrupts it. Voices flutter across the canal like lazy birds. Matteo barely notices. The world continues without asking him to follow. He remains anchored instead to wet paper, to drying paint, to simple unchanging presence. When noon nears, Matteo senses hunger not with urgency but as a mild suggestion. He clears the table just enough to set his single bowl down. Rice and beans wait just as they waited yesterday and every day before. He eats with slow, measured bites. The window lets in a warm draft, filled with scent of river salt, a faint trace of seaweed perhaps, an old stone that has absorbed 1,000 tides. He chews, he swallows. He rests. He does not think about tomorrow or yesterday because those words mean nothing here. All time folds into one moment repeated again and again. After eating, he closes his eyes. The bench beneath him is hard and familiar. Sunlight softens across his face. His breath becomes shallow like the whisper of gondolas at night. Sleep drifts in like fog. Dreams are pale, shapeless blankets, without characters or voices or change. They could last 1 hour or a whole lifetime, and Matteo would not notice difference. When he wakes, it is afternoon. The shadows have shifted slightly. The same masks dry in the same sunlight with the same patient expression. Now he paints. His brush dips into white pigment thicker than milk. He draws strokes across each surface, and the paint settles evenly because his hand is trained through endless repetition. No flourish, no creativity, just completion. One coat, another coat. Each mask gleams softly. The room holds the faint scent of drying paste. Matteo breathes it as naturally as air. If he ever walked away from this workshop, his lungs might not know what to do. An hour passes, then 2, no clock marks them. Time is only measured by how much paper remains and how dry the masks feel when touched lightly. He sands the edges of each once the surface firms. Powder falls like delicate dust snow building in small quiet piles near his feet. He leaves it for later sweeping. Tasks must remain in their familiar order. To sweep early would be unthinkable not by rule, but by the nature of life that does not wish for change. Evening folds into the day without transition. Light softens. Shadows puddle near the walls. The canal outside deepens in color, a muted silver blue like polished pewter. Matteo hears another gondolier. A different voice perhaps, or maybe the same man who rode yesterday. And all the days before, though, Matteo cannot be sure and has no need to be. Songs stretch across the water with long-drawn vowels. A handful of notes repeated like his own quiet humming. When the time feels right, he sweeps the paper dust from the floor. It forms a soft gray heap, and he pushes it toward the corner to bundle later or never. He stretches his back. It aches in the same dull place along his spine, a familiar companion rather than a complaint. He washes his hands in the basin. Water runs pale white as pigment dissolves and vanishes. Then he sets tomorrow's strips to soak. Every piece of paper submerges quietly beneath the surface, like yesterday's strips sinking into memory. He eats bread again. Drinks water again. He stands at the doorway watching the canal with blank calm. A lantern floats past hanging from a gondola prow, making ripples of orange light dance across the walls. Matteo watches only long enough to see the lantern drift out of sight. Then he returns inside. He extinguishes the lamp. The room settles into soft darkness. He lies in his bed, feeling the faint breeze through cracks in the shutters. His mind is empty not by lack but by fullness. So full of repetition that no single thought can rise separate from the rest. He breathes. He sleeps. And the masks rest with him. Dawn lifts again though. Calling it dawn feels almost unhelpful because Matteo would have risen whether light came or not. His mind wakes with the same slow unfurling of awareness as every previous morning. He opens his eyes. The ceiling looks exactly as it did last year. Smooth, pale wood. No marks of time beyond a faint darkening near the beams. He breathes. Sits up. Feet touch the same cool floor worn by the same 2 footsteps he takes every morning between bed and basin. Life is not a circle to him. It is a single straight line repeating itself moment by moment without deviation. He splashes his face with the same basin water that waited overnight. It has lost the nighttime chill, though not completely. His skin tingles lightly. He does not wipe it away. Instead, he lets droplets fall down his neck while he lights the lamp with fingers steady enough to perform the task without sight. The lamp brightens into a weak ember of gold. Shadows shrink against the walls. The masks made yesterday stand in patient rows, their pale blank eyes tilted toward him, as though listening and not listening at the same time. Matteo approaches his bench. He lifts the first of today, strips between rough fingertips. The paper softens against the cold water like a memory dissolving. One strip, one placement, one gentle smoothing across the curve of the mold. His hands do not hesitate, they do not question. He could do this blindfolded. He could do this asleep. Each motion has been performed so often it holds the calm of prayer, a quiet devotion to the unchanged. Hour after hour he builds the new faces. White and smooth, identical. 27 again because 27 fills the hours without spilling. The number seems less like a choice and more like a truth the room itself remembers. As each mask takes shape, Matteo hums those same 3 soft notes. They drift between wood beams like small feathers and settle on silence as though silence is the only listener. Outside the canal remains loyal to its rhythm. Oars dip, water folds back on itself. The sound has texture like silk rubbed between fingers. Voices stretch thin across morning air. A merchant calls lazily from a passing boat, though Matteo never looks out. The world beyond his door swims past like a dream glimpsed only through eyelids half closed. Inside time has no urgency. No change, no need. By midday his stomach gives the faint suggestion of hunger. Matteo stops not because he chooses to, but because that is what happens at this hour on every day he can remember. He steps to the window bench. The same wooden grain under his hand. The same cushion long flattened. His meal is again one bowl of rice and beans cooked the night before. The steam rises faintly though hardly warmed. He chews slowly and swallows softly. The taste holds no surprises. It is neither pleasure nor disappointment. It simply is. After eating, he wipes the bowl with the edge of his sleeve like he always does. The cloth stains faintly where beans once rested. He carries the bowl back to its place with the same pace he uses for every task and sets it down in exactly the same space it occupied yesterday. Routine is not a cage to him. It is a blanket pulled gently over the world. Warm afternoon sunlight spills across the workshop. It spreads in calm bands across drying masks. Matteo rests his head against the bench and closes his eyes. His nap arrives like fog. No rush, no fall, only a quiet dimming of awareness. His thoughts fade into pale nothing. No color, no stories. No sharp dreams to disturb the gentle stillness. He wakes when shadow shifts slightly on the floor and the air cools enough to remind his skin that time has passed. Afternoon brings painting. The brush lies where it should lie. The pigment waits in its shallow dish. Thick, white, familiar. Matteo paints each mask with the slow, sure movements of a man who no longer sees difference between himself and his work. Every stroke repeats 1,000 pas strokes. The surface glistens wet, then settles matte and uniform. 27 faces stare blankly toward the window. They seem alive only because of their stillness, because stillness holds a kind of breath. He sands edges once dryness comes. The soft powder drifts like winter without weather. It lands gently on wood floor. Matteo does not rush. He takes breaks that last seconds or minutes, though neither word carries meaning here. He pauses only when the moment feels full, then resumes. The cycle circles like gondolas turning in narrow canals, never straying from their expected path. Evening settles in layers. The water outside grows darker like ink stirred in slow motion. A gondolier sings near the far wall of sound. His voice thick and drawn. Matteo listens without listening. The melody is not new, though he cannot remember when he first heard it. It might have been years ago, or yesterday, or both. He sweeps the paper dust after the painting ends. The soft whisper of broom bristles moves across the floor exactly as it every night of his life. He gathers the dust into a small bundle, then leaves it in the corner. Tomorrow he might move it again. Or not, nothing requires decision. He rinses hands. The water clouds pale with pigment. He watches it clear, then fall silent again. He sets new strips to soak until morning. Paper sinks beneath the surface like thoughts Matteo never speaks. Outside lanterns tremble across canal blackness. Ripples cross light into broken gold. Bread again for dinner. He tears it slowly, drinks his water without taste, then returns to bed with the same gentle pace. His body folds into familiar posture, hands resting across his stomach like always. Air settles around him. The last sound is distant oar cutting water into pieces small enough to swallow. He does not dream. He drifts. He exists. And morning waits already behind his eyelids. The morning sun lifts slowly above the Venetian rooftops. Matteo wakes before it fully appears, though he barely notices the hour. His body moves through the motions he has known for decades. He swings legs from the straw mattress, breathes in the familiar air of the room. The wood floor greets his feet the same as it always has. He stands in silence for a moment, letting the quiet settle like a gentle fog across his shoulders. Nothing disturbs him. Nothing surprises. The day stretches forward in soft lines and familiar angles. He lights the small oil lamp, though. Sunlight has begun to creep along the floorboards. The flame steadies and casts long pale shadows across the walls. Matteo sees the masks from yesterday, drying in neat rows. 27. Blank faces that watch without watching. He does not speak to them. No words are needed. The presence alone is enough. He turns to the basin and lifts the first strip of paper. Water softened overnight. Gentle and yielding. He dips it and lays it over the wooden mold with the slow care of a man performing an act that has no end and requires no beginning. Hours pass almost without marking. Light shifts gradually across the workshop. Shadows stretch and pull back as the sun crosses the sky. Matteo continues layering paper over mold after mold. 27 again. Always 27. His hands remember every curve, every dip, every subtle ridge. He hums the same 3 notes. They echo softly across plaster walls and mingle with distant calls of gondoliers along the canal. Sound drifts in. Sound drifts out. Matteo does not notice except as part of the rhythm. Noon approaches. Hunger reminds him. He sits at the same bench by the window. Rice and beans again, the same portion. The same bowl. The same quiet warmth rising from the stone beneath his feet. Outside the canal glows silver. Gondolas move slowly. Children call faintly across bridges. Matteo chews. Swallows. The moment feels infinite because it is. After lunch, he rests. The nap is shallow. Eyes closed. Body lying against the worn wood of the bench. Light soft across his face. The world continues in small familiar movements. A breeze flutters across shutters. Water laps quietly. He drifts and does not drift. Dreams are absent. He wakes when sunlight tilts across floorboards, just enough to suggest it is afternoon. Now comes painting. Matteo dips the brush into thick white pigment. He coats each mask slowly. Smooth. Even. Each stroke the same as the one before. 27 masks line the table and drying rack. Each face is blank. Each face is perfect. Each face is identical to the ones he made yesterday and the day before and all the days of the years he can remember. Nothing competes for attention. Nothing demands change. Only the quiet satisfaction of completion. He sands edges carefully once the paint has dried. Powder falls lightly across floor. He sweeps it into a soft pile in the corner. Each movement measured. Each movement familiar. The world outside the window continues its quiet drift. Gondoliers call. Water moves against stone walls. Venice breathes softly. Matteo breathes with it. Evening descends. The canal darkens into silver and black. Lanterns sway gently. Their reflections ripple across the workshop walls. Matteo does not move outside. He does not walk the streets. He does not speak. His life exists within the workshop. Within the quiet pulse of 27 masks a day. He rinses tools, places paper strips to soak for tomorrow. Stands at doorway, watches lanterns float by, breathes, returns inside. Bread again for dinner, water again, lamp extinguished. He lies down, hands across his stomach. Eyes close. Sound of gondolier fading into distance. The day folds into night just as every other day has folded. And Matteo sleeps without dreaming. Routine cradles him. Time has no meaning beyond repetition. Another morning waits already behind his eyelids. The cycle continues in perfect, unbroken rhythm. The world outside shifts gently. The workshop does not. The masks remain. Matteo remains. And life flows slowly on without change. Morning comes as it always does. Matteo opens his eyes before the sun has fully risen. His body lifts from the straw mattress with the practiced grace of repetition. Feet touch the floor. Hands reach for the basin. Water is cool but not shocking. Breath fills the room slowly. He stands in quiet stillness, listening to the faint rustle of Venice waking beyond the shutters. A gondola drifts in the distance. Oars scrape softly against the stone. Voices rise and fall like faint music carried by air and water. Matteo does not respond. He does not move beyond the familiar path. The day exists entirely for the rhythm he knows. He lights the lamp and allows the flame to steady itself. Shadows reach across the walls like gentle hands. The 27 masks from yesterday wait, drying in their usual row. Each face blank and patient. Matteo approaches the new paper strips soaking in the basin. He lifts one between fingertips. Water softens it until it bends obediently. He lays it across the wooden mold. One strip. Another. Each pressed, each smooth, each remembered by muscle memory. The work is endless, but it does not feel so because he never measures it against time. Each motion has already been repeated countless times, every repetition familiar and comforting. Hours pass without urgency. The sun climbs higher. Light shifts slowly across the workshop floor. Matteo continues layering paper over mold after mold. 27 masks again, always 27. He hums the same 3 notes, low and gentle, that accompany each step of his day. They echo faintly across plaster walls and mix with distant calls from the canal. Boats move slowly. Gondoliers sing softly. Matteo does not notice or notice only as part of the world's soft rhythm. By noon hunger arrives, gentle and predictable. Matteo sits at the window bench. Rice and beans again. One bowl, chewed and swallowed slowly. The same taste, the same warmth. Outside, the canal reflects sunlight as it always has. Gondolas glide. Children run along bridges. Voices carry faintly. Matteo watches just enough to notice, then lowers gaze to his food. There is comfort in sameness, peace, stability. After lunch, he rests. Bench holds him, eyes closed. Light moves across the workshop floor in the same gentle shift as yesterday. A breeze enters through the small window. Paper masks sway gently. He breathes slowly. Thoughts drift lightly and then fade. Dreams are rare. When they arrive, they are indistinct and pale. He wakes naturally, feeling no need to hurry. Afternoon waits. Painting begins. Matteo dips the brush into thick white pigment. Each stroke follows the last without hesitation. The masks gleam slowly, drying in the warm afternoon light. Each one identical, perfect. 27 faces arranged with care. Each face blank, silent. Matteo observes the rows and nods gently, not with pride, not with excitement, simply with recognition. Completion has occurred. Rhythm has been maintained. Order continues. Edges are sanded. Powder drifts across the floor like snow falling silently. Matteo sweeps it into neat piles in the corner. Every movement slow, deliberate. The world outside moves in its own rhythm. Gondoliers call. Water laps softly. The city breathes. Matteo breathes. Life continues without interruption, unbroken, quiet. Evening descends gradually. Lanterns on gondolas flicker softly in the canal. Their reflections ripple across workshop walls. Matteo does not move outside. He does not leap. He does not speak. He rinses tools. Replaces paper strips to soak for tomorrow. Stands at the doorway and watches light drift slowly across the water. Breathes. Returns to his table. Turns lamp low. Extinguishes flame. Dinner is bread and water. Familiar and sufficient. The day has completed itself. Matteo lies in bed. Hands rest across his stomach. Eyes close. Outside the window, distant oars cut water. Gondolier songs fade into night. The masks wait silently for the morning. Matteo drifts into sleep without dreams. Another morning already exists behind eyelids. Routine remains unbroken. The workshop remains steady. The masks remain white and blank. Matteo remains. Time continues softly around him. Morning arrives quietly over Venice, though Matteo does not wait for it. Light drifts lazily across rooftops, slipping in through the shutters of the small room where he sleeps. He opens his eyes slowly and stretches, feeling the familiar stiffness along his spine. Straw mattress creaks beneath him. The floorboards under his feet are cool and worn smooth by countless steps taken in the same pattern over decades. He does not hurry. There is no urgency here. Only the soft pull of routine that has guided him all his life. He swings his legs to the floor and stands. Breath fills the room slowly. Each inhale is measured, deliberate, and familiar. He moves toward the basin with small, careful steps. Water awaits, drawn from the canal last night. Its surface holds a faint reflection of the dim light through shutters. Matteo lifts his hands and splashes his face. The water is cool and soft at the same time. Tiny droplets fall to his chest. He does not wipe them away but lets them trail down. He breathes and listens to the faint sounds of Venice stirring outside. A gondola glides past in the distance, oars scraping the stones slowly. Voices carry across the water, thin and gentle. Matteo notices them but only as part of the rhythm that surrounds him, not as an interruption. He lights the small lamp. The flame wavers for a moment then steadies, casting long, soft shadows across the walls of his workshop. The 27 masks from yesterday wait patiently on the drying rack, pale and blank. They have watched him in silence, as they always do. Matteo moves to the basin where new paper strips soak. Each strip is lifted gently between his fingertips. Water softens it until it bends without resistance. He lays it carefully across the wooden mold, smooths it slowly. Another strip, another, each motion repeated with perfect accuracy. There is no hurry. No thought beyond the strip, the mold, and the gentle motion of hands trained through decades. The morning hours stretch like soft fabric. Light shifts slowly across the floorboards. Shadows lengthen and retreat. Matteo hums the same 3 notes he has hummed every morning for years. They float softly across the workshop, mingling with distant canal sounds. Gondoliers call. Water laps against the stones. Children run across bridges. Matteo does not speak. He does not move beyond the walls of his workshop. He works. 1 strip at a time. 1 mask at a time. 27 masks again, always 27. Each mask identical. Each mask blank. Each mask a reflection of precision and quiet patience. At noon, Matteo pauses. Hunger is mild, predictable. He carries a small bowl of rice and beans to the bench by the window. He eats slowly, deliberately, each bite chewed with care. Each swallow unhurried. The flavor is familiar. Warmth rises from the bowl into his hands. Outside, sunlight glimmers across the canal. Gondolas glide. A faint breeze stirs the water and the nearby trees. Voices drift in, faintly, across the stone bridges. Matteo closes his eyes for a moment, savoring the warmth of the room, the food, and the slow, steady rhythm of life around him. After lunch, he lies on the bench. Sunlight falls across his face, warming his shoulders. He breathes slowly. The breeze from the shutters carries the soft scent of water and stone. Masks on the drying line sway gently. Matteo drifts, almost asleep but not fully. Dreams do not come. Time suspends itself. The light changes imperceptibly. Shadows stretch across floorboards. Gondolas pass. Water ripples. Venice hums. Matteo remains motionless, waiting, existing. Afternoon brings painting. The brush lies in its shallow dish, pigment thick and white. Matteo dips it slowly. Each stroke glides across the first mask, smooth, even, perfect. He repeats on the second, the third. Each mask receives the same gentle care. 27 faces gleam in the afternoon light. Each identical, blank, silent. Completion is quiet and unremarkable but deeply satisfying. His hand follows muscle memory, each stroke familiar as breathing. The room is filled with the faint smell of wet paste and pigment, calming and comforting. He sands edges. Soft white powder drifts across the floor like snow settling gently in a forgotten winter. Matteo sweeps it into neat piles along the walls, careful not to disturb the rhythm of the workshop. Outside, the canal continues its gentle song. Gondoliers call in low tones. Water laps slowly. Reflections shift across the walls. Matteo listens, hums, and continues his tasks with unbroken attention. The world beyond the door exists, but does not intrude. He does not leave. He does not speak. Every action is deliberate, measured, slow. Evening comes gradually. Lanterns float on the canal. Their reflections ripple softly across workshop walls. Matteo steps to the doorway. He watches the light move slowly across water, breathes deeply, returns inside. Extinguishes the lamp. Dinner is bread and water. Sufficient, familiar, necessary. He lies on a straw mattress. Hands rest across his stomach, eyes close. Outside oars scrape water. Gondolier songs drift faintly in the night. Masks wait silently for the morning. He drifts into sleep without dreams. Another morning already exists behind his eyelids. Another day will repeat the same soft rhythm. Routine is unbroken. The workshop remains steady. Masks remain blank and white. Matteo remains. Time flows slowly around him like the gentle canal outside, unchanging, calm, eternal. Every movement, every breath, every moment reflects the quiet perfection of a life measured in repetition. A life without interruption. A life without variation. A life that continues softly, endlessly, peacefully. The quiet life of Venice continues without end. In 1666 Venice, Matteo lives a life measured in repetition and calm. Each day begins before dawn with the gentle rhythm of water, sunlight, and the slow hum of his three-note melody. He dips paper strips into basins, layers them over molds, paints and sands 27 identical masks, and eats the same simple meals, all while the soft music of gondolas drifts from the canals outside. Life passes in a quiet cycle of creation, routine, and stillness, with nothing to disrupt the perfect, meditative flow. Matteo's world is unchanging, serene, and hypnotically beautiful, a study in the hypnotic poetry of ordinary repetition and the quiet pulse of Venice itself. If you enjoyed drifting through Matteo's quiet world, don't forget to like, subscribe, and tap the bell so you never miss another journey into history's gentle rhythms.